Welcome, Reggie Middleton, and congratulations with making your lawsuit public with Coinbase. I understand from your recent announcement that your lawsuit could also include contributory infringements of more than 14,500 institutions. Would you like to expand on this for us and tell us more about the effects of contributory infringement and what that looks like?
Okay. Well, let me start off by saying I am not trying to go after 14,500 Coinbase customers. So let's alleviate that fear, rumor mongering, and mythos right now.
Right.
But contributory infringement is a real thing, and it's basically when you induce somebody. Induce infringement is when you induce somebody to infringe. Contributory infringement is when you contribute to the infringement that someone else is doing. And of course, if Coinbase is infringing on Veritaseum IP by using or selling a particular technology, and they sell that technology in mass to institutions, and those institutions use it, those institutions would be infringing unless they have licensed the technology or VeriDAO Capital gave them permission to use it, none of which has happened to my knowledge. And I think I would know. So there is definitely a risk there. I bring this up because the whole concept of patents, patented IP, is really, really misunderstood in the crypto industry. As a matter of fact, it's not even misunderstood, it's ignored. And then when people start paying attention to it, they, in essence, most don't really know what they're talking about. So, yes, there are large customers of Coinbase and small customers who may be liable for contributory infringement. Now, there are several ways that can go. If they could have a indemnification clause in their contract signed with Coinbase. And if that's the case, then Coinbase has to pay for whatever legal expenses they would incur as a result of doing business with Coinbase. I haven't seen these contracts, but I don't know if they exist because Coinbase didn't even know, according to Coinbase, wasn't even aware the patent existed. So if you wonder where the IP protection existed, then I don't think you probably have an indemnification clause that would protect against that. But this is me just guessing that. I'm not a lawyer or legally trained, so don't take this as legal advice or any advice whatsoever. Simply my opinion as a dad. Okay, I'm not even talking as a litigant in the case. Simply my personal opinion. But if I were an employee, if I were a customer of Coinbase, I would, number one, check any documentation for indemnification clauses. Two, these large customers can be sued directly by the patent holder. Three, they can license the actual technology. The reason this is brought up is because crypto and the blockchain industry, the distributed ledger industry, is progressing and growing very fast. Ignore the downward prices of the units of account. So Ethereum price and Bitcoin price, that's not indicative of how fast the industry is growing. Adoption is indicative of how fast the industry is going. And that has been scaling up exponentially for years. Okay, regardless of the price. So with more adoption comes more maturity. With more maturity, it's time to start playing, in the big leagues with the big boys and the real rules. And so it's time to take patents and IP protection seriously.
And you've been speaking about that point for quite some time.
Yeah, I have been warning everybody about doing proper due diligence.
Yes.
For about a year. And right now, in my opinion, Coinbase has the cooties.
Yes.
Touch Coinbase, you get the cooties too.
And we're seeing a lot of executives of some of these businesses stepping down, just kind of a flood right now. Do you think this recent exodus of these crypto executives could be running from their responsibility that they should be being held to for not doing their due diligence and looking out for their shareholders, such as Kraken, the CEO stepping down, FTX US president stepped down, Alameda CEO or co-CEO stepped down, MicroStrategy even CEO has stepped down. Of course, the big chaos with Celsius. Do you see that being related somehow?
Well, it seems to be a trend, that's for sure. I am not going to speculate as to why they stepped down, but when you have that many CEO level departures in such a short amount of time, there should be something correlated, and there probably is. I don't know. Since I don't know, and I pride myself in being relatively accurate, I'm not going to opine upon it. Even if you do step down, you're still responsible for your time at the helm. I can tell you right now that most of the big exchanges and their investors and their customers have not been taking the patents and the IP related around patents seriously. And they haven't been taking me seriously. And I've sent notice letters out, and they've been absolutely ignored. So the Coinbase suit is something that basically had to happen. Try to do it the easy way. It didn't seem to be productive.
I think they are starting to take you serious. That's what, so I noticed this tweet that I wanted to share with you and get your feedback on. You have patents not only in the US, but in Japan as well. And we noticed that there was an announcement that Binance was going to be re-entering Japan in cryptocurrency exchange and seeking to re-enter the Japanese market after exiting 4 years ago. And I just put a little tweet out there and I said, they better do their due diligence first. I've learned that lesson from listening to you, and get their license from Reggie Middleton for his JPO first. Not financial advice. I'm also not a lawyer, but maybe they need to talk to ask VeriDAO and Coinbase and Veritaseum Inc. how that went. So, what are your thoughts? Do you believe that Binance will take legal action? The precedence is set that you will take legal action to protect your IP. Do you expect Binance to do their due diligence and reach out to you for a license for your patent in Japan?
I don't have that expectation. I think, number one, I don't think enough of the entities are actually seeking competent legal advice. At best, they may be discussing things with internal counsel, and this internal counsel is an IP specialist, particularly a patent specialist that deals in distributed ledger tech. That should be referred to an outside firm, or a specialist should be brought in, number one. With Coinbase, to Coinbase's credit, they did bring IP specialists in. A young lady who is very prolific in building up IP portfolio. But there's a big difference between building an IP portfolio and defending against an IP claim. But she apparently knows, what she's doing in terms of building a patent portfolio. She put Capital One to the top of the list in a very short period of time. So kudos to her. Whether Binance does it, if I had to take a binary bet, yes or no, I would say no, simply because I haven't seen similar execution in the past. Personally, I would reach out to me and have a conversation. Nobody wants to pay if they feel you don't have to pay, but if you push the patent holder to the point where they have to enforce, past a certain point, they have no desire to cut discounts and do deals because you force them to incur expense, time, and aggravation. You can read the patent yourself and you can see how strong the claims are. You don't have to go through a court case. You really don't. Just read the patent. And if you agree, then, sit down and strike a deal. Right now, and for the entire year, actually, definitely since the beginning of the summer, some of the biggest and most prominent law firms have been going through the patent, looking for a way to invalidate it, kill it.
Around it, yeah.
It's not the best use of your time, but if you want to do it, I'm a strong advocate and believer in the patent. And if you start a fight and you lose, it's not worth it, particularly for exchanges. Most of these exchanges, we're talking between 88 and 100% of their revenues are predicated upon the patented technology. So why take a risk with the entire business? A binary risk with 100% loss potential. And it is possible. Remember, a patent is simply a right to sue. It gives you ownership over an idea, device, method, process, or system. And if you get ownership of it, it doesn't mean that nobody can use it. It means that someone uses it without your permission, okay, you have the right to sue them. But with that right to sue them, you could sue them for compensatory damages, get compensated for what you feel you owe, or a jury decides you owe, punitive damages for ignoring the patent and other things. Or you can sue to get an injunction and forbid them from practicing the invention. In terms of an actual exchange, that's a death knell. An exchange that can't trade Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, NFTs, etc., or the coins that are traded on top of them. So, it's an exchange, it's not a business.
Why wouldn't they come to you and say, you have the patent, you have the legal right to sue them and stop their business? Why wouldn't they come to you? And do you think that has something to do with the allegations of fraud that were never charged, that you were never charged with, but that you were accused of, and then had the settlement come out? But you've really been blocked by a lot of the media, which I think is part of the strategy by those people that are in their pockets. It seems to be a concerted effort. The way that your story has not been told and by whom all is involved in it, a strategy behind it, to get this, and the language that they use, they're misinforming people about. As I've done my research, I hear this term, patent troll, and when you educate yourself on what a patent troll actually is, it's someone that buys patents from dying companies that they had nothing to do with, and then goes and tries to see where they can sue people for using it on, where it's infringing. So that has nothing to do with what you're doing. But they're using these little, these language things and tricking an uneducated community and making them think that you're an enemy where you're not. Do you see that?
The term is called a useful idiot, actually. It's a political term.
Interesting.
Political term coined by the KGB. And a useful idiot is someone who is led to believe that they're acting in their own interests, but are actually acting in the interests of another party. So the KGB,
a form of like a psyop being played on the crypto community by these billionaire players.
And I want to, because I have nothing against billionaires. Okay.
Sure. I'd love to be one.
Right. But when you have a company that does $119 billion a year in revenue, per year in revenue, and they go and they allege that Reggie Middleton, who was stripped clean, right, by a bad actor who would get benefits from tax revenue, who invented something and lived, day to day, starving to try and produce this invention, and was knocked down several times, couldn't raise capital despite the fact he had outstanding investment track record, outstanding research track record, couldn't raise capital. And you're going to call him a troll. What he is he's an inventor and an entrepreneur. Yes. And he is lacking the capital of a $110 billion a year company because he doesn't have access to the same funders. They won't allow him into a club. So the American way, the entrepreneur, the inventor, is being labeled as a troll, while the corporate equivalent of an oligarch is making these allegations and used for idiots. And I don't want this to be offensive at all or condescending. Okay, this is actual terminology, or being corralled into pushing the narrative. The real narrative is the entrepreneur is what the Constitution gave patent rights for in the first place.
Yes.
So entrepreneurs and small businesses can invent technology, make America a more productive place, turn into a bigger company, and spend money and hire more people, et cetera, et cetera. These big companies are what you call pirates, patent pirates. Patent pirates are just like, I can't figure the name of a popular pirate, but, I can't figure the name, like with the beard and the eye patch and the missing teeth.
Blackbeard, the pirate.
Yeah, Blackbeard, the pirates of the Caribbean. Yeah. They make a living by stealing from others. That's how they make their living. These big corporations steal the technology, right, and use it and profit from it. And they don't want to give the entrepreneur their fair share and their due.
Yes, and they control the markets. And this is actually a video that a friend of mine found and sent to me. This is Gary Gensler teaching at MIT prior to being working at the SEC. And he's talking about exactly what you're talking about and how he's just being very factual about it. You will give up 50% of your company if you want to be successful. Or give that percentage in native tokens for the banks to buy in, or because they have, and he goes on to explain that it's because the central bankers are specifically slowing down innovation so that they can keep their market share and will not allow new markets to be made. Listen to this and give me your response. I think this is something everyone needs to hear.
And by the way, just replacing one central monopolist with another central monopolist, a lot of commercial banks aren't terribly excited about that. Maybe you're going to have to give some ownership. Maybe you'll have to give 50% of your ownership to the 20 banks that are now, part of this. I mean, there are other ways to build incentive systems. Maybe you put a native token in there and you give them the native token. So there may be other incentive ways to beat the current monopolist, but I, having been around commercial banks for a long time, they really are looking for ways to replace their aggregators in their back office, whether it's clearing, settlement, exchanges, credit agencies, but they are deeply understanding because they are pretty ambitious and very good at making money as well. They deeply understand that every idea that's pitched to them is somebody who currently is small but wants to get big and gain market power. So they're also always thinking about how to ensure that there's a check to slow down your startup from gaining market power 5, 10, and 15 years from now. They don't want you to be the next clearinghouse like the Chicago Mercantile Exchange or Intercontinental Exchange. They don't want you to be the next central node of market power. So you might share some of that with them, or you might find an incentive system.
I'd love to get your thoughts on that. I think that is just blatant.
He spoke freely because he didn't know at the time that he shouldn't have spoke freely, but basically, as I understand what he's saying, the banks are in power and they're very good at staying in power, and they will do whatever it takes to make sure they do stay in power, primarily by slowing down any fast-moving competitor. The culture of banks prevents rapid movement, rapid innovation. Okay, and so because of that, they prevent rapid innovation. They apparently have something in the SEC that small entrepreneurial concerns don't. Banks have been caught doing all types of things. Okay, I have yet to see a bank driven out of business from an SEC fine or litigation. I have been. Many other token holders, token based entities or affiliate entities have been. And they have the economic damage they've done pales to what even a small and medium bank has done. And I've yet to see a bank driven out of business by the SEC. The fines are always of a de minimis amount of the revenues derived from what brought the fines upon.
Well, just to take a second, I know we're all listening to the noise on crypto Twitter, and we talked recently about, how they're trying to turn, they are trying to turn, the crypto community into useful idiots. And we want to fight against that and get good information out there. The charges that were brought against you were not ultimately charged with anything. There was a settlement instead. And that to me is a huge win in itself when you're chased by or charged by an entity as large as the SEC, and the settlement, which means you guys came to an agreement.
And less of an agreement, more of Reggie bend over, but I understand.
The things that they charged you with were not ultimately finalized in the final judgment. There was no charge of fraud in the final judgment. And so for people to continue to use the term fraud is not correct. You are not charged with fraud in the final judgment. And actually those accusations were applied to or talking about the fact that you were talking about getting patents for this IP, which you have now gotten patents not only in the US, but in Japan. And so all that should be laid to rest, that you are not a fraud. And no, I'm not a lawyer or whatever I need to say to disclaim any of that. But I can read a final judgment, and everyone else should take a moment to do that as well. It is public domain, I guess, or I don't know the proper term, but it's out there for the public to read the final judgment. And it's very interesting that it also does not call Veritaseum tokens a security in that final judgment as well. So kind of interesting the language that they use in all that. And language is important.
More importantly, I want to ask you a personal question, so you can say no or none of your business. Are you a Veri holder? Do you hold a Veri?
I am, yes. Okay. I'm a Veri token holder, yeah. In the secondary market.
Do you feel you were defrauded?
Absolutely. By you, absolutely not. I've been harmed by the actions of the SEC because the licensing or the software that I prepaid for, the business, the opportunity that I was wanting to be a part of, the tokens that I, purchased and prepaid for, that opportunity was destroyed by the actions of the SEC. And so because they went after the innovation in the US and stifled that innovation, my investment was harmed. So actually the SEC harmed me, not Reggie Middleton.
Okay. Because nothing against lawyers, but you could go straight to the horse's mouth. You can find out from, the source. But yeah. I can't really discuss this because I don't have the wherewithal to do any more rounds with regulatory agencies and enforcement arms. So sure. I'm going to keep quiet on this. But it is interesting. The patents are broad or significant in scope. I wouldn't say broad. I think the market is very, very large. I put a number that seemed outrageous to some out 4 years ago, and I was wrong. But I was wrong to the conservative side extremely, because the market is much bigger than I thought it was back then. So I was wrong by being much too conservative. And the Veri token holders are staunchly active. I'll let you, if you want to share with what the VeriDAO is up to, but the VeriDAO consists primarily of
yes, it does. It has token holders, and we actually are have been inspired by the recent filing of the digital chamber commerce, and we've had the community support as well to be able to have a legal fund so that we could look into filing our own amicus brief so that we can be a friend of the court and share our experience as token holders to how we've been treated by the SEC as it applies to, the Ripple case, just because we think it's important for the court to know what's been happening and for those voices to be heard. I was encouraged to see that the Hinman emails are being released. Yeah. Well, this is generational in their nepotistic little crew over there. You see that revolving door at the SEC and how they go in and out of, companies, and it's very interesting if you look into it. That leads me to my next little set of questions. These innovation has been, is being held back, and Gensler openly talks about it there, that it is a strategy of theirs, and that it being held back so that's their buddies, the bankers, the corporate interests, their incumbents can catch up and get in the right positions. Would you say that COPA, or do you believe that COPA relates to this in any way? Is COPA a red herring in the crypto community?
For those who don't know what COPA is, do you want to explain?
Oh,
because I'm bad at acronyms, but I know what it is. But for everybody else,
I've got let me share my.
I could do it. The Crypto Open Patents Alliance. That's what the acronym stands for, and it's basically a trust, like the old school trust that Teddy Roosevelt fought and successfully broke up with antitrust law. It's a trust where you have a bunch of entities, mostly or many very, very large and very powerful entities that pool their influence and power and assets to negatively affect smaller entities who don't believe in their ideals. I believe that's accurate. That's not what they have on their website, but I do believe that's accurate. So you can look into it and judge for yourself. Basically, they create a patent pool, and to join COPA, you have to pledge that you would put your patent in the pool and you would not use it for offensive means. Okay? Only for defensive means. But that begs the question, what does that mean? For instance, I think COPA would state, if they were asked on the record, that I was using my patent for offensive means by suing Coinbase. I beg to differ. This is defensive means. Coinbase is using our technology, or we're alleging that they're using our technology, and we wrote to them and notified them of it and asked them to discuss it. And it wasn't productive. And then we had to move forward to attempt to defend our technology, of which we won a patent on. That's defensive. But COPA appears to be trying to make it seem offensive. COPA was formed earlier in 2022, if I'm not mistaken, or 2021, early 2021. Right after being formed, their first action was to offensively sue an entrepreneur.
Wow.
Now, it was a very unpopular entrepreneur, Craig Wright. The guy that alleges he's Satoshi Nakamoto. But regardless, he is an entrepreneur, he is an inventor, and they sued him offensively. And that is against the ethos that's right on the front page of their website.
Right.
Now, every time I mention Craig Wright, people jump into, and I hate to say it, the useful idiot conversation. I'll agree, he is not a likable personality often. He said some unpleasant things about me. But he also said some pleasant things about me. He seems all over the place. It doesn't really matter. I don't need him for a friend. But he is coming up with ideas. He's submitting them to the patent office, and he's getting patents. He's writing code, or his team is writing code The code is going into production. He says it works. If you think it doesn't work, show where it doesn't work. Okay? It's just that simple. If you don't like his product, don't use it. If you like his product, then use it. But to actively sue him means that COPA is one of those trusts that Teddy Roosevelt tried to bust in his trust buster days or antitrust days, which is the anti-monopoly laws.
Well, and the irony of that is that, like, so these members of COPA, I mean, how many of these members do you think, do you see here that have patents themselves that are protecting their own IP? And then the fact that in their pledge, the members say the pledge of COPA is that you can have a patent, but you can't use that patent to sue an infringing party. But you're saying they're suing Craig Wright?
Right. Now, they didn't sue him on patent infringement. They sued him for something else. But it's still an offensive legal tactic. And
which is not what that is not what their pledge says. Their pledge says, is it in their facts? Patent pledge is legally binding and it's in self-defense if the member is sued by a patent aggressor. Oh, they're not using troll anymore. Aggressor. The member wants to use its patents defensively against such aggressor. In defense of the community or anyone in the crypto community is attacked by a patent aggressor, once again, or the member wants to use its patents. So what's the point of having a patent if you can't use it to enforce your patent?
Yeah, let me explain. Number one, they're saying, listen, the best defense is an aggressive offense. That's really a joke, but that's what they're doing. But they're not really trying to be defensive. They're trying to create the law of the land. They're trying to tell the business community, do things our way or face the aggression of these, several multi-billion-dollar companies. I find that to be, and I'm not a lawyer, so it's not legal opinion or legal advice, anti-business activity. It's monopolistic activity, a trust, number one. Number two, if they really, really believed in a level playing field, then I would like Coinbase, who's a member of COPA, who have told me they're a member of COPA, as if it mattered to me, open source and give me all your source code, because I want to open up an exchange. Coinbase has active exchange. Share your source code with me. Prove to me, okay, that you're willing to share this capital, because source code is intellectual property. Also, I need their political capital and their financial capital as well. If I had access to the same political capital that they did, the same financial capital, and the same intellectual property capital, that's a level playing field. And then it's the best operator that wins. But that's not the way it is. I can prove it. The SEC sued me, sent me a Wells letter and sued me. Okay, as the CEO of Veritaseum. The CEO of Coinbase took to Twitter one day earlier this year, and he was bitching and complaining and very pissed off and upset, understandably so, at the SEC, because they threatened him. And they said, if you release this product, we will sue you. And he was very upset, and I can understand that. But then I said, wait a minute. So he gets a warning. He gets a tap on the shoulder and a heads up. Hey, don't release that product. Or if you do, we're going to sue you. It's going to cost you many, many millions of dollars. And we might go after you personally and take all the capital. He gets a warning and I get a lawsuit. What's the difference? Political capital.
The winners and losers.
Right. He's not sharing that political capital with Reggie. He's not sharing it with Veritaseum. As a matter of fact, he's keeping it to himself and he's benefiting from it. Okay, that's understandable. That's business. I couldn't raise capital from VC firms, despite the fact I have an outstanding track record of calling economic and financial booms a bust. I, without a doubt, know what I'm doing. I'm better at it than 99.9% of the populace, the professional populace. I filed these patents very early. Obviously, I saw that. Okay. And I know my way around a balance sheet in the business very, very well. I have much more of a track record than many of these guys. They were able to raise capital with 1/10 of the accomplishment that I had. So that's not a level playing field. Give me your access to financial capital so we can share equal access. That would be a level playing field. If COPA was serious, this is what they would do. They would force Coinbase and Facebook to share their political capital with us and everybody else. They will force them to share the access to their financial capital. Okay. And they would go after Google. And they would use legal force to force Google to claw back hundreds of billions of dollars of revenue. Why? Because the only reason Google is where it is now is because of the PageRank patent that was filed by Larry Page. And that's why Google had a monopoly on their search engine rank algorithm and their search engine ranking optimization algorithm. They had a patent on it for 20 years. Well, a little less than 20 because you have to count the prosecution time. And that's why Google was able to go past Alta Vista and Yahoo Search and all the other search engines, if you're old enough to remember that. So if COPA was really, really concerned about patents and patent trolls, go after Google. Probably should be going after Facebook as well, but Google number one. You should also go after Microsoft and IBM, and I could go through a long list. Instead, They want to go after Craig Wright. And I wouldn't hold my breath. Chances are they're really working hard on myself as well. I think I understand finance and the business environment, strengths and weaknesses a little better than the average. So they're probably taking a little more time in their response and what they'll do. Now, I don't like fighting. I don't want to fight. I'm not litigious at all. But I am offended by what COPA is alleging they're doing versus what they're actually doing, because it's basically creating a gate. You know, they're creating a gate, economic rent, and they're preventing what was intended in the Constitution for patents to do, for the little man or woman to have an idea, invent it, have it protected, and bring it to market. They're trying to force that out. They're anti-constitutional. That's a no-no in my eyes.
Do you believe that that is only possible right now because there is... So it's my understanding that regulatory law is made in Congress, but oversight's carried out in SEC. Right now, there's not, the law is not there for digital assets, and it hasn't been made in Congress. So right now, there's the regulatory law, or the regulatory bodies are not putting regulations in, and that way they're stifling innovation and they're picking the winners and losers without the regulatory clarity. They don't want to give guidance so that they can just kind of, oh, well, show me yours. And then they're information gathering and swatting the little guy as they stifle innovation and gather that information.
Right.
To use as they see fit.
Giving regulatory clarity
puts them in a box.
Right. It dulls the enforcement sword. Okay. Mm-hmm. Without clarity, you can go after anybody you want. Let's use a traffic violation. It's much easier. Okay. Imagine someone, a troll was rolling around your neighborhood. They took down all the traffic lights, all the speed limit signs, and all the stop signs, and then sat there, okay, with a speed camera and just pulled over randomly every person they found who had a red jacket on or red clothing, and just pulled them all over and gave them massive fines, massive tickets. And they said, "What did you do wrong?" I said, "What did I do wrong, officer?" "Well, you broke the speed limit." "But what is the speed limit?" "It's 10 miles per hour.
Whatever I said it is. Yeah.
I don't see it posted. They said, "Well, that's what we said it was." You know, so you can give tickets all day and all night. You can pick just people with red on, or people with black on, people, just naked people, people with clothes on. You can do this all day.
And you could just make charges against them and destroy them financially and stifle innovation and bring harm to their investors for years to come, to where the business can't come to fruition. And then, just make a settlement and go away, right?
But doesn't that harm the country?
It does harm the country, and it goes against the Hobbs Act.
Okay. But who does it benefit then? If it harms the country, why would they do that?
I have my own thoughts about that I probably shouldn't say publicly.
Well, Gensler said it publicly in that video. Or he said it at MIT, and then it was broadcast publicly. The answer to that question is right in that video that you played a little early.
Yeah, it's follow the money, and you know
Now,
who's.
Listen, I'm not anti-bank either. I'm not anti-anybody. I'm just destructive to Reggie's friends and family and the country and the world. I'm sort of one of those guys, it's all love and let's hug. I actually like hugging. But,
Well, and I loved this tweet that you put up about, because I think this is where, it's that think mirror that COPA is putting out this message that they're doing it for the little guy, but it's actually taking the power away from the little guy, because you said this before. If you want to give your innovation, what you created away for free, that's great, but patent it so that you have the control to do that. Because if you don't, you create it, then someone else will come in and they will patent it, and they'll own it, and they might not give it away for free. And that's what's going to happen. And so when you did the research on this and said, what's actually happening when they're making these comments about the patent trolls and patent pirates, billion corporate interests are steering the narrative into investors as patent trolls. Many entrenched interests are patent pirates. Math facts show that patents protect entrepreneurs and startups. Big tech wants weaker patent protections to make it less risky to steal the little guy's ideas. And then you showed that this random sampling of 700 to 7,000 open and closed patent infringement cases shows that the majority of the plaintiffs are not patent trolls, but individuals, small companies, and larger operating companies. So I thought this was really powerful to show who the lawsuits actually are, what the real lawsuits are, who's really being affected by this.
Lisa, do you see me scratching? You see that? I break out some people break out the hives when the facts are you're allergic to facts. So you just start scratching, and that's me being funny.
I think you've had the facts in your face all the time. I mean, you're putting them out there. So
some people are really allergic to facts. If you educate yourself, you're proof against being a useful idiot. And again, the term idiot is condescending. But if you look up the concept of useful idiot and how it was used by the Russian KGB, PSYOPs, and, it's quite the education. It really is.
And you've helped me really see that this is not a partisan thing. This goes so much higher or deeper, however you want to look at it. The people that are making these decisions and creating this kind of stifling innovation like this and hurting our country and hurting the individuals, they don't care whose party it is that gets them.
They donate to both. It's foolish. Why would you donate to a party and take a 50% chance of losing? You donate to both parties. The entities operating within the government are often career bureaucrats. So they sit in through Democratic and Republican administrations. And if for whatever reason an independent wins, they're going to be in there as well. So the reason why people are thinking left versus right, conservative versus liberal, Democrat versus Republican is because they are being manipulated and they are being made as useful idiots.
Yes.
I wish the term idiot wasn't in there so it wouldn't be so
people would accept it a little more of themselves.
Without pushing it back. But it is what it is.
I have been one and probably will be one again in the future, but I'm trying to educate myself so that I won't be fooled and put in that hole again.
But there's no perfection over here. I've been it as well. Yeah. But, once you figure out the truth, it's time to spread the gospel.
It makes me think of that old cartoon when we were a kid where it was the sheepdog and the wolf, and they're beating each other up. And then they go to the time clock and they clock out.
Yeah, clock out.
Hey, bud, you want to go have a beer? Wile E. Coyote.
And the chicken hawk, I think. Yeah.
I knew somebody was beating each other up. But then they're really buddies behind the scene. They're all working together. They're working together against us. Well, Reggie, I just appreciate your time so much. I'd like to let everybody know where they can find your work, follow your journey, and support you in your battle for justice. I'm sharing your Boom Bust blog and your latest analysis, forensic analysis on Coinbase here. Where can people find your work?
Okay, boombustblog.com is where we're storing the analysis now. Some of the old deprecated analysis is on Veritaseum.com, but go to boombustblog.com for the analysis. Follow me at Reggie Middleton on Twitter. I'm very active there. And there's a Kraken analysis that we're working on. I call it the first draft, but the analysts made it a final draft. But you now always go through, pick apart, add stuff in, and that would be interesting. Out of the new crypto research reports, we had an off-the-cuff analysis of USDC and Circle that was just off the cuff, but very interesting. So that's not a full report, but it's of interest. We have Block, formerly known as Square, very, very interesting. And we have Coinbase. Block is like 80-something, 50 to 80 pages with 2 addendums. Coinbase is 114 pages with 1 addendum, and the lawsuit, which we're able to predict coming, and Kraken is coming up as well. These are state-of-the-art, unmatched anywhere. Sell side Wall Street, the buy side, even the crypto analytic firms. Take a look at all the banks and their projections on Coinbase and Block and compare it to our research. And we were much, much more accurate. Everything that we said, everybody else said just 6 months after the fact. And they're still all ignoring the IP bubble, all ignoring. Even, I don't know if even now we'll see, but I do have an inside track since I do own the IP and I have control over some of the companies that may be filing charges, but not charges. Allegations, but got me saying charges now.
Sorry.
That's quite all right.
Allegations. I wanted to ask you one more question. I want to close with asking you, we've mentioned that IP is in the Constitution. If this goes to, or do you see this going to the Supreme Court, and would you make this fight a constitutional issue?
No, because it's already a constitutional issue, but there's so much precedent and case law in it. There's no reason.
It wouldn't go on.
I mean, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know if I could make it a constitutional issue. But the basis of IP rights and patent law are in the early amendments of the Constitution. And honestly, I doubt if it's going to go to the Supreme Court. It's not a prudent move on either party. And having it go to trial at all is not a prudent move on any party, either party. Not. But I'm willing to do it. It's just that I think it's a foolish move. You have 2 guys arguing and well, I'm willing to throw you off this 100-story building.
Right.
Okay, but I'll throw you too.
Right. I'll grab you with me.
You know what I mean? But, if you got to do it, you got to do it, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, the law is there. So I do have faith in our justice system, and hopefully we'll see this through.
I request, let's have faith in everybody's ability to count and do math. And with that comes absence of litigation.
Okay. Faith in math, that's what a lot of blockchain cryptocurrency is based on. I guess we can all lean on that, and that will bring the truth to us. Well, thank you so much. I'd like to close with something that a great and handsome man I know once said. He said, "The facts are clear. Patents protect entrepreneurs and startups, which is why big tech wants to hamper patent protection to make it cheaper, easier, and less risky to steal the ideas of the less capitalized and less connected." So everybody, that's us. That's me and you. So fight for Reggie because he's fighting for me and you and for free markets. All right, guys, take care.
Okay.